Playing Final Fantasy VI again has been an absolute treat, right? This is an all-time classic JRPG, the best RPG of the 90s, I would say. And it's maintained its relevancy for the past 30 years quite well, right? It's an all-time classic, everybody loves it. It's really well regarded. But I have to ask, like really, why exactly were we not demanding a remake of Final Fantasy VI instead of 7 specifically? Because I find it really odd how the PlayStation audience was demanding a remake of Final Fantasy VII since like the PS3 was first shown off, like not even like a full 9 years after the release of Final Fantasy VII. But somehow like Nintendo fans are sitting there just being like, yeah, we're good, we don't need a remake. And I suppose in a lot of ways there are like good reasons for that because Final Fantasy VII six is such a classic. Like having it remade so soon didn't really make a whole lot of sense. I suppose in a lot of ways this is like the difference between Final Fantasy VI and the Seven fans, right? Final Fantasy VII fans are fanatical, while Final Fantasy VI fans are passionate. There is a difference, right? Like we don't necessarily want changes in Final Fantasy VI. Like we wouldn't want them to ruin the brand like they did with the Final Fantasy VII remake, right? And there is a lot of re I have a lot of respect for that mindset. However, having come back and played Final Fantasy VI again recently, I'm about like halfway through the World of Balance, I would say. I'm a good ways into it. Um, I do think, 30 years later, that it is about time that we seriously start talking about a remake of Final Fantasy VI, not a sequel, a remake of Final Fantasy VI, because the game, as great as it is starting to show its age, right? I do think the pacing is a little bit off. I do think like you don't really get enough time to like get involved in the world and the setting and get invested, right? I do think the dialogue is pretty simplistic by today's standards. I do think a lot of characters don't really get fleshed out all that much, including Setzer, Gao, and some of the other characters, right? Like I do think like we could do a lot more with the with Terra as a protagonist, Locke as a love interest for Celis. Like it's weird how Locke just kind of comes back in the world of Ruin. Like he's the last guy you get back, and then like it's like nothing changed, right? Like there are like lots of things about Final Fantasy VI that are iconic and for good reason, right? They were extremely cutting edge at the time. But I think with today's technology and like the kind of work and effort that went into making Final Fantasy VI, like that went to Final Fantasy VII, like I think remaking six and really fleshing out the world, the setting, the characters, making it feel more alive, like modern spectators, like I think that might be really really interesting, right? Like I think if they handle it like tactfully and actually decided to like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a segment where like Shadow acknowledges that he's Realm's father instead of having it just be a deep lore thing. We're going to like have Strago confront Shadow. We're gonna have like Terra. We're gonna show Terra struggling with her emotions more because that's definitely something that like I have an issue with in Final Fantasy VI, where like Terra exposits about like not feeling emotion and not feeling like attached to other people, but like I don't know. Do you actually see that in the actual game? Like it's one of those things where you just kind of have to like use your imagination in a lot of ways, and that's what makes Final Fantasy VI great. Is that like what makes people passionate about this is that like there are a lot of holes to be filled in regards to, like how the characters feel about what's going on and like the situation and stuff like that. You can use your imagination for it, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, like, yeah, like maybe we could get something more. We could get some more content, right? I mean, how cool would it be if we got some more opera sequences? Like, how cool would it be? Would it be to see Celis interact with Maria? Like, how cool would it be to like actually see the ending to the opera? Which has never happened ever in any Final Fantasy product. Like, how cool would it be to see more of Final Fantasy VI? And again, it's again, this is modern SquareSoft we're talking about, Square Enix we're talking about. So I have no optimism at all for them doing this. But like, yeah, it might be fun to think about. It might be fun to like kind of acknowledge that, yeah, like Final Fantasy VI, like there are newer games than Final Fantasy VI that have been remade. Like, why exactly haven't we? we gotten something like that. The last time the game, like, well, the Pixel Remastered is great. Like, I'm very happy with the Pixel Remastered, but again, like, we didn't get new story elements. Like, it's the same game we've always gotten, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I would never want that game to be replaced. But at the same time, again, like, it's definitely something that I think fans should be considering. I do think in a lot of ways that I would like to see these characters again in the story in a new way. I do care about the game very, very much.